At first glance, this looks like a simple religious painting, but it's actually something much more complicated. This painting may appear to be just another traditional image of Christ, surrounded by angels and the symbols of his suffering. But the more you look at it, the more intentional it becomes. You start to realize this painting isn't just about religion. It's also about navigating expectations. Religious expectations, artistic expectations, and especially gender expectations. It's also a painting about survival, because the person who made it, Lavinia Fontana, was a woman working in a world where women weren't really expected to be professional artists at all, and that changes how we understand every choice she made. So instead of asking, what is she painting? I want to ask something else. What did she, as a woman, have to do to succeed at this level? Let's start by taking a closer look at the body of Christ. It takes up most of the painting and is stretched across the composition, making it the clear focus of the scene. At first glance, your eyes are immediately drawn to Christ's body. You can clearly see the wounds and the tension in his muscles and the physical weight of what he has endured. But then, if you shift your focus to his face, it tells a different story. Instead of showing extreme pain or distress, his expression is calm and restrained. And what's interesting is what Fontana chose not to include here. She doesn't push the suffering into something graphic or dramatic. There's no extreme blood or overwhelming violence. The suffering is visible, but it's restrained. The contrast between a body that shows pain and a face that remains composed creates a quieter, more reflective emotional experience. That contrast shifts the experience from shock to reflection. Like Fontana is guiding you into thinking about the suffering, not forcing you to react emotionally all at once. Now look around Christ's body at these objects. These are known as the Arma Christi, or the instruments of the Passion, which include the cross, the crown of thorns, the nails, and the column where Christ was whipped. Each one represents a different part of Christ's suffering. But instead of showing one specific moment, Fontana does something really intentional here. She spreads these symbols around him. So as you look from one object to another, you're being guided through multiple moments of the story. This shifts the experience from simply looking at an image to mentally moving through what happened and reliving the crucifixion of Christ in your mind. At the time, these symbols would have been immediately recognizable, which made the painting a powerful devotional tool. And this connects to a much broader context. During this period, the Catholic Church, following the decrees from the Council of Trent, declared that religious images should be capable of encouraging emotional engagement, doctrinal clarity, and devotion so that viewers could connect to it personally. Fontana's painting aligned with Catholic ideals while also drawing on the compositional style of earlier artists such as Michelangelo. Now let's compare Fontana's piece. Using the body to communicate emotion connects to earlier artists like we see here in Michelangelo's Pieta. In the Pieta, Christ's body is idealized and carefully structured to express emotion through form rather than dramatic action. It's not hyper-realistic, and by realistic here, it doesn't mean like a photograph. It means the body is shaped and structured to feel believable and human. Fontana is doing something similar. Like Michelangelo, she's not relying on exaggerated facial expressions or movement. She's letting the body itself carry the emotion. So instead of overwhelming the viewer, she creates this kind of quiet space where you're meant to think and reflect. At the same time Fontana is working is a period in art history known as Mannerism. Mannerism comes after the High Renaissance. It was an interesting period where artists often moved away from balance and natural proportions and often made figures look exaggerated by taking liberty with use of longer limbs, unusual poses, and less natural proportions. It wasn't about being perfectly realistic anymore. It was more about style, tension, and emotion. But Fontana doesn't really lean into that exaggeration here. She's not trying to push the body into something extreme. She's choosing clarity and restraint. Instead of taking liberty or trying to be innovative, she keeps things controlled and within expectations, and that's important. I think this is where her choices become clear and her situation as a woman becomes more apparent. Because she didn't have the same freedom as male artists, she had to be careful. She had to be careful with reputation, careful with how she was seen, careful not to step too far outside expectations. So what might look like, quote unquote, playing it safe is actually her being really aware of what she could and couldn't afford to do as a female artist in her time. Rather than emphasizing an innovative style, her painting reflects a deliberate use of established artistic and devotional strategies shaped by the expectations of the era. In other words, this isn't a lack of creativity. It is a choice. There's another important detail that really brings attention to her mindset at the time of this painting. On the small stone tablet, Fontana signs her name. Lavinia Fontana, Virgo Facibat, 1576. Virgo translates to virgin, maiden, or unmarried young woman. In 16th century Italy, this was often used in signatures to emphasize the artist's virtue, purity, and status as an unmarried woman working under her father's guidance. Facibat is a Latin verb meaning was making or was in the process of creating. So translated, the inscription says, Lavinia Fontana, unmarried young woman, or virgin, made this in 1576. This may seem small, but this is actually one of the most powerful parts of the whole piece. Because she's not just signing her work, she's claiming it in a very public way. She's also identifying and emphasizing herself as unmarried, which is interesting because it tells us the exact status of her life when she created this. In a time when women were often not credited or taken seriously as professional artists, she's very clearly saying, I made this. This is mine. Fontana was absolutely capable of more complex, highly detailed work, as seen here in the portrait of Ginevra Aldrovandi Ercolani and her dog. Fontana painted detailed portraits, large complex commissions, and really refined compositions like this one. So if someone looks at the painting of Christ with the symbols of the Passion and thinks, oh, it's simple or it's safe, I don't think that's accurate. When we see her choosing a more traditional, structured approach in this painting, it's not because she couldn't do something else or something better. She wasn't limited by skill. She was operating within limits of expectation. And that's where the bigger picture comes into focus. As a woman in the Renaissance, Fontana didn't have the same freedom as male artists. She couldn't always study anatomy in the same way. She had to protect her reputation constantly. She couldn't take risks that could damage her credibility or make people stop hiring her or taking her seriously. So instead of thinking she's just following the rules, I think it makes more sense to see her working with awareness of those rules. And when we look at this painting through that lens, everything starts to shift. This isn't just a devotional image. It's a carefully constructed work that reflects not only religious expectations, but also the reality of navigating a system that wasn't designed for her. She's not outside the system trying to break it. She's inside the system trying to succeed within it. And that changes how I see this painting completely. Because what looks like, quote unquote, playing it safe might actually be one of the smartest ways she could have worked. Whether Lavinia Fontana was playing it safe or playing it smart, when we look at this painting, we're not just seeing religious imagery. We're seeing a female artist navigating faith, tradition, and gender expectations all at the same time. And maybe the real question isn't whether Lavinia Fontana took risks or not. Maybe the question is, what does success even look like when the system itself is limiting what you're allowed to do and you still find a way to be seen and taken seriously? This interpretation is supported by scholarship on Renaissance art and religious imagery after the Catholic Reformation, as well as early art historian Vasari, who emphasized the importance of artistic skill, reputation, and artistic training during this period.